Okay, I'm so sorry for the technical issues. Apparently, it was cut off shortly after I show up. So that's the part you're gonna love technology, right? So let's start over again. Welcome to Water Wednesday, everyone. My name is Yiling Zhuang. I'm the Regional Water Resources Agent with US IFAS Extension. If you are not familiar with extension, I always say the best way to describe us is we're the extension of University of Florida. We provide science-based, research-based knowledge to everyone. So there are different ways how we deliver the knowledge to everyone. We do classes, we do one-on-one consultation, we do field trips, we do demonstrations. And like today, we do Facebook Live. And Water Wednesday is a Facebook Live series provided by a group of agents with UF IFAS extension. We will go on live every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So no, you don't need to register for any events. Just tune in at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You will see us on Facebook Live. And last Wednesday, we explore all the resources in Florida, all the water resources in Florida. And I joke at the end, it's like, hey, what's the solution to pollution? Because we always joke, the solution to pollution is dilution. So let's welcome today's guest speaker, Krista Stump, the Natural Resources Agent at Osceola County. She will give us a short talk about the landscaping pollution solution. Now let's welcome Krista.
Thank you all. Yes, so today we're going to talk about water pollution, but specifically we're going to find out what are some solutions that we all can do at our own homes to help with water pollution. Before I get started with the main presentation, I wanted us to all think about why is water pollution an issue? And specifically, why is it an issue as we continue to develop land more and more? Well, let's think back about how what is on our land before we put down any roads or buildings or sidewalks. It's typically just soil or land, right? And it's covered in plants. So I have my little house plant here. And so imagine when it rains on undisturbed land, what happens? The water goes in, it filters down through the soil, right? And also the plants uptake that water and use it. And the plants, through their roots, are able to filter out any pollutants, but also uptake any nutrients and then use those to help themselves grow. In comparison, as we're laying down more hard surfaces, what happens when it rains? Now you can imagine if I were to pour water on this, what would happen? I would be standing in a puddle, right? Because it doesn't go through, it runs right off. And that is the main concern with runoff and pollution. So with that, let's talk about that a little bit more and then dive into some solutions. Here in Florida, we're rapidly growing. We know this. And if we look at our projected land use, a lot of it is going to be covered in that developed land. So we're getting rid of all of those plants in the soil that can help absorb and filter out the water. And instead we're covering it with those hard surfaces. And those hard surfaces are called impervious surfaces. Impervious just means that it can't go through, and instead it just runs right off. And as I mentioned before, these can include anything that's made out of pavement or asphalt or our roofs, such as, roads, our buildings, parking lots, and our sidewalks, anything like that. And as we grow and grow, we see more impervious surfaces. Why is this an issue? This is an issue because it causes an increased amount of stormwater runoff. This is a great figure. If you just look, it rains down and what does it hit? It's going to hit our roofs, the sidewalks, the driveway, the road, and all of that rainwater just runs right off instead of soaking down. Along the way, as it's running off, it's picking up pollutants. So if there's any pet waste or fertilizers, it picks that up, and those contain a lot of nutrients. There are other pollutants though too, such as motor oil from our driveway or any chemicals or detergents, or if there's any litter. And where does that water go? We typically direct that water into a drain, and pipe it into a stormwater pond or water body. And so all those pollutants are still in that water. It hasn't been treated until it gets to the stormwater pond. And this can have serious impacts. For instance, with fertilizer or pet waste or any pollutant that's containing nutrients such as nitrogen or phosphorus, it can have serious impacts on our environment. It can cause algal blooms, which not only impacts our environment, but can have serious economic concerns because a lot of our economy here in Florida is based on having clean water. If you think about boating or fishing or beaches. And similarly, some species of algae can have human health concerns because of the toxins that they release. So it is a serious issue, and we need to find a way to control that stormwater runoff and treat the water before it gets into our waterways. Conventionally, we use stormwater ponds. Many of you may have a stormwater pond in your neighborhood or in your community, or maybe even in your backyard if you're on a property that is right by the water. And so it goes down the drain and it's piped into this pond. When we were first creating stormwater ponds, these are designed to help with the flooding issue here in Florida, because we know that when it rains, it really pours here, doesn't it? Think about our rainy seasons. So when we were developing the land, there needed to be a solution. Where can we hold all of this water to make sure our homes and buildings don't get flooded? Thus, we have stormwater ponds. And while, because they're held in there, some of the nutrients and pollutants are treated, in conventional stormwater ponds where there aren't a lot of plants or anything, really we're finding in studies that we're not treating as much of the nutrients as we need to. And instead that water just continues through the water cycle, continues into our waterways. And that's how we have issues with algal blooms, etc. However, the good news is that there are solutions. There are things we can do to help, and there are things that we can do just right in our backyards. And that's what the rest of this talk will focus on. There are stormwater tools that actually mimic nature. So just like that plant that I showed you and how it filters that water, we have designed tools that mimic nature. And these are called low impact development tools, or LID. And the goal of this is just to manage that stormwater as close to its source as possible. So that means we're going to, instead of just piping it away into a pond, let's try and hold it on the source and treat it there. Because the longer it runs, the more pollutants it picks up, right? And we just want to treat it right on the source. So that is what LID is. And it sounds like a fancy term, but really they're simple solutions that are considered low impact development. And it has a lot of benefits. You can see that if it's working as a plant does, then it can help improve our water quality. And some of them even help with us conserving water. We also, it can help with improving our soil quality, because not only do pollutants affect water, but if our water is polluted and it's running into the soil, then that can impact our soil quality. And if you design it properly, it can lead to increased amount of open space. And that open space can be used for recreation or education or as a habitat for wildlife. So it has many different benefits. But what exactly are these tools? Well, there are a bunch. We're just going to go over a few that can be used in your backyard. And often more than one is used. So they're kind of used together. So it's like, it really is a toolbox. So when if you're building something, often you need to use different tools for different situations, and often almost all of them together if you want to have the most amount of benefits. We're going to start off with one that's called permeable pavement. Permeable pavement is also called pervious pavement or pervious pavers. So remember back to impervious surfaces where it just runs right off, kind of like my hard tile. We have designed and engineered pavement solutions that allows the water to run through. And you can see that in that one picture there. So the water actually is able to filter through. And this is excellent, right? So instead of it just running off and increasing stormwater runoff, it filters through. And there are many different types. You can see the ones that have, grass in the middle of the pavers. And so then the grass area is what is filtering out the water. Or it can be one concrete slab or individual pavers. And so this is an excellent solution if you're at home and you're wanting to redo some landscaping, maybe you want to put a walkway in, I'd highly consider you look into some permeable pavement to use. It can be a little bit more expensive, but it's really worth it in the long run because you're helping with our efforts of decreasing our water pollution. Another excellent landscaping tool is to implement a rain garden. And I love this figure because it really shows that cross section of what's happening when we have a rain garden. So a rain garden, usually it's directed into a depressional area in your land. And as it rains, you use the proper plants that can be drought tolerant for when it's dry, and then when it rains, also flood tolerant. And there are a lot of native Florida plants that are great at this because they're used to our rainy season and our dry season. And so rain gardens do work well here in Florida. And so it just allows all those plants to filter out that water slowly. And there are plenty of resources online through UF. I will also have my email up after this if you would want some more resources about how to build a rain garden. The next one is a rain barrel. And see, this is what I mean by these solutions. They don't have to be super complex. A rain barrel is a type of low impact development because it's taking the runoff from the roof and holding it at its source. And then you can use that water to water your plants in your landscape or in your house instead of just letting it all run off all at once. So rain barrels are a great tool to use at home. And they're just like the rain gardens, there are a lot of resources online. And I'll also say there are some talks about us probably doing one of these dedicated to rain barrels. So just stay tuned for that and let us know if you're interested in the comments, and we'll pursue that further. Another type of LID are swales or bioswales. So a swale is pretty much a ditch with grass in it. And you can see that on the left side of the screen there. So a lot of us may have ditches in our front yards or somewhere in our landscaping. However, by adding plants into it, you can turn it into a bioswale. And so then as the water runs along, the plants are filtering out the water, right? So it's just an improved swale, is called a bioswale. And their bioswales are really, really great, not just at our homes, but in our communities. For instance, as can be seen here in between a road and a sidewalk, or in between the parking spaces and the sidewalk. And they can also be engineered. So yes, you can just have a regular ditch that you put plants in, but also underneath, and it's hard to see, but that's what that sign is showing, that underneath you can have a drainage ditch that then can run the water. So if there's too much water, that helps with the flooding, but it's already going through all the plants to help filter out the water. And of course, we can get really complex with this. This isn't always practical, but I think it's a really cool idea. Usually it doesn't work at our homes because our roofs have to be built to be able to withstand the extra weight of a green roof, where you can put a garden up on your roof. But it is something really cool to think about, and also just the limit that it's a part of the LID toolbox. And one more, here we have green parking. So remember the pervious pavers or pervious pavement? And then also we have, plants and things like that. You can use these tools together to create something like green parking. So instead of just a big long stretch of concrete, how can we implement some more nature or some ways to help filter out that water so it's not just running off our parking lots? And finally, for the ones that I'm going to show today, is they don't have to be super complicated. Our trees, just like our plants, are a huge LID tool, because trees, as you can see in this figure here, their roots are so expansive that they really help to slow down that water. And not only their roots, but think about when it rains, where on a tree does the rain hit first? The canopy. And as it hits the canopy, it's slowing down the rain. So it's already slowing down that runoff and helping to decrease it. And then of course, it uptakes the water and filters out the nutrients and uses it to grow. Now, when I was mentioning about the different tools, remember, they can be all used together. And this is a great figure that's showing that you can use it in what they call a treatment train. So here you can see the rain garden up front and the tree, but also if you look at the back, it has a rain barrel, which is also called a cistern. And it used porous pavers and a mix of the driveway with the grass center. And all of these together helps us to decrease the amount of stormwater runoff. And that helps us fight the water pollution issues that are happening around the state as we continue to develop more and more and have an increased amount of impervious surfaces. So with that, I just want to say thank you. My email is right there. If you guys have any questions or want more resources, feel free to reach out. Yeleen is checking the Facebook chat. So if you guys have questions, please leave them there.
Thank you, Krista. It's very informative. I'm checking our Facebook Live. So far, we don't have any comments. I understand there are some delays between our life and their life. So before we have more, we gave our audience a little bit of time, let them post their questions. So I do want to ask a question. It's about green roofs, because I do know, especially in US, or I should say, especially in Florida, so it's our building code. We don't really have that much application of green roofs. So which country has the most green roofs? Do you know?
I don't know which country does, but I do know that there are some Northern European countries that use them a lot. So I'm not off the bat able to tell you which one has the most. And you're right, it depends a lot on our building code because it can have serious damage to buildings if not done properly. So there's a reason for that. I think the interesting thing about them is just the idea of using all the space, right? And so even our roofs, technically, we can use that space, but not here. You're exactly right. Depending on the building code, you can't.
Yeah, green roof is always, to me, it's always very interesting. So I've seen it's, some people are doing it, so maybe instead, it's not really green roof. What they are doing, it's like rooftop gardens. So that's also, to me, it's very interesting. Maybe something not really to Florida because we don't really have high rise because of a hurricane season. So it's not really meet our building code, but to me, it's that's some like creative ways to handle landscaping pollutions. I'm checking our Facebook comments now. I don't see any questions at this point, but people may view our videos, like our live video later. So I will say if you have any questions, just leave on the comment and I will compile those questions and send it to Krista. So she will address those questions on our Facebook comment area. And also during her presentation, she mentioned something really interesting about like rain barrel or even about rain garden, like what kind of plants we can use for rain gardens. So if you are interested in any of those topics, please just write a comment in the below and I will try to coordinate a speaker for our Water Wednesday to address those topics of your interest. So thank you again for today's Water Wednesday, and thank you, Krista, for giving us such an informative presentation about landscape, about pollution solution, because we know for sure dilution is not one of that, correct?
That is exactly right. But these LID tools can be some pollution solutions, which is quite a tongue twister, isn't it?
Right. Excellent. It is. Last week, I couldn't even say the whole sentence, landscaping pollution solution. So it turned out to be, it's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But thank you again. And please tune in next Wednesday. And the next Wednesday, our topic will be Florida-friendly landscaping. So please tune in next Wednesday, 2 p.m. I will see you then. Bye.